Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 5th Town Council meeting.
We're missing one.
We can still start the meeting.
Okay.
We get a quorum.
Okay.
So please all rise for a salute to the flag. Margot, you want to lead us tonight?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could all please stay standing for a moment of silence for men and women serving us at home and abroad. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. We're going to get right into public comment. Again, I apologize for the delay. We had a meeting we had to attend. First on our guest list tonight is Brian Christensen from Comcast.
I'm not sure if all of you have met Brian before, but just in case, this is Brian Christensen. He is our representative from Comcast, kind of my first place to touch base when we're having issues that need to be resolved. And he is here tonight to answer your questions about the transition to digital, how it went, any questions you might have about the process, or anything else you want to ask him.
Thank you, Dottie. Again, my name is Brian Christensen. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Mr. Karen. Dottie had asked me to come here to kind of talk about what we are at the tail end of here in Londonderry is our digital network enhancement. I'm happy to, I'll kind of start at the end and then go back to the beginning, but when I said the tail end, I really mean the tail end. Tonight we are adding between 70 and 80 channels on the Londonderry channel lineup tonight, and this process started over the summer, where we started to notify our customers of equipment they would need on their households to continue to receive their television signals. It's our digital network enhancement. We are notifying our customers that they would need a piece of equipment on their TVs unless they have a QAM tuner on their TVs to get the digital signals. Signals were going from analog to digital. And we had a process where we would notify the customer up to 10 times before our channel move or cut last week to do that channel, to get equipment on their boxes. It was successful. We migrated our channels to digital. We are the last cable, we are the last television kind of entity that did not require a cable box or a tuner to get a signal. We all see the ads for FiOS television in Massachusetts. Those all require cable boxes. DirecTV here in New Hampshire, Dish TV here in New Hampshire, they all required cable boxes. We were the last ones to do it. And you may ask yourself, why did we do that? So I started the conversation talking about the 70 to 80 channels that we're adding tonight. And when we digitize the network, it allows us to offer more on the network. So we're now able to offer up to 100 high-definition channels. We're going to be able to offer speeds up to 100 megs on our internet speed. We're going to be offering the voice product is obviously there. So it's going to allow us to expand and make the capacity of the system more robust and grow for the future. I don't have any other prepared comments, but I'd be happy to field questions from the council.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure we can accommodate you. John, you want to take a wing?
Sure. Can you please explain, all right, so for example, you have these little boxes. You gave 2 free, and then you're charging for the additional boxes. When you have an HD-ready TV with the equipment in it that's supposed to be able to do the digital conversion, why don't you get all the same channels as you get in the little box?
Let me see.
Other than the fact that I'm paying for the little box, which I'm not
so
happy about either, but that's another story.
Let me see if I understand your question correctly. On your HD TV
I hit
You were
auto-
getting,
I-
you
I
were
hit
getting the,
Auto
this-
search program.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
So you hit auto search program.
Okay,
Okay, so it searches, picks up whatever signals are out there, right?
right.
Right? The channels you get on there are not the same as the channels you get on the little box that I have to call up 1-800-COMCAST and say, "Hi, push the button, please."
Right, so I guess
So why is there a difference? Because I've already, now I'm paying, I feel like I'm paying twice because I bought the right equipment, but I don't have your special doodad.
So am I to understand, previously your cable was coming directly, I'm going to simplify it, from the wall into your TV? You did
Yep.
not have an HD digital converter, an HD box from Comcast beforehand?
On this particular plasma TV, plasma LCD, whatever it is, this particular flat screen, which is HD TV ready,
Right,
you know, whatever they build into the TV,
right.
I can get digital stations on it, but I can't get the same digital stations as if I use your little
Right.
doodad box.
Right, so our little digital transport adapter, or I can call it the doodad box, because I like that. I'm not sure how Margot will
Just so
spell
people,
that,
I
though.
mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that noticed, so at least the people will understand why they get what they get and
Yes.
they don't get what they get.
So the signal coming in to the digital transport adapter is, it's a mapped, it's a defined signal that comes into our head end that we send, obviously, we package and we send to you. The one you're getting directly from the cable into your digital tuner, it may tune channel 9 on channel 9.1 or something like that.
So
So,
you get like, 50 channels.
right, and some of those channels are attached to the digital signal that, let's say, the channel 9 is sending out, that we don't necessarily carry on our lineup, but it is attached to their signal. So
Okay.
if you have it sounds like you have a digital tuner or QAM tuner in this TV you're talking about.
Correct.
So you're getting both HD signals and kind of, they're called digital network signals, DigiNet signals,
Okay.
that a channel 9 or channel 4 may be sending out, kind of attached to that. And we don't necessarily carry all those channels. But if you're getting them because they're kind of coming through unfiltered.
So let me give you one that's very specific. If you have the regular digital TV without your box, you don't get ESPN. If you have your box, you get ESPN.
Correct.
Why?
I don't get us either, do they?
I mean, I got to imagine I'm not the only guy that would ask this question because, I feel like I now just got a degradation in service. Although I'm going to pay more.
So we're giving those couple boxes for free.
2.
Correct. But, so what we have to ensure is that you're actually receiving what you're paying for, right? So that box is also descrambling or uncrypting channels. So if we were to allow that signal to come through straight from the TV, straight from the wall to your TV,
Right, which is what you used to do.
which is what we used to do. And
Right.
we used to deploy filters outside.
Right.
Which is an antiquated way to kind of ensure that you're getting what you're paying for, any consumer's getting what they're paying for.
Right.
Now the signal is 100% digital, and that descrambles the signal. So, for instance, we, for obvious reasons, we need to
Right, you're in
ensure
business
that,
to make money, I get it.
yeah, we need to ensure that a customer paying $26 a month is getting the $26 a month service versus the $60 a month service. And that's what that box really does. Otherwise, we could just put it on there and it would be open. It would be an open channel lineup, and we wouldn't be able to see what the consumer was getting.
Okay, so let me repeat this back, make sure I understand it, okay? So part of your digital enhancement that you did, what people will see will be different in this community is people who are used to paying for services they got, which they got everything, will no longer get those services unless you pay more.
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, help me understand. I'm only trying to repeat what you're saying.
No, I know. I believe we just walked through the process that you will continue to get the services you have always gotten. The only change that has happened is that the signal is now digital. And in order to receive that digital signal, you do need equipment that descrambles, unencrypts that signal. We are giving 2 of those pieces of equipment free.
Then they're $1.99 a month after that.
That is correct. Sort
Right.
of.
So for all those people who
it's an
only
equipment
have
charge,
2
sir.
TVs in their house, which, you know, God only knows why in America we have more than 2 TVs. You can't watch more than 2 at one time.
You don't,
They're-
you have women in the house, come on now.
Okay.
You lose the remote.
I mean, you know, the Kardashians are on in every room, okay? Now, they'll pay more than they were paying before to get what they were getting before.
The service, no, Mr. Farrell, the service is still the same cost. You're paying an equipment charge now.
So they'll pay more if they want to use the same equipment they had, unless they come and get boxes for more than what they had before. So there will be people paying more for the same thing.
There could be people paying more.
And there could be people paying less,
There could be
Unlikely.
people paying the same.
the same.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I just want everybody to understand that there may be some incremental charges to get what you had before, because that is what you've decided to have in your lifestyle.
And, you know, thanks for opening that door, because I started the conversation talking about 60 to 70 more channels that we're
Right.
adding. So,
Okay? In full disclosure, let's tell them
yeah,
everything.
so this process, we are adding more channels. So
Gotcha.
you may be paying the same as we just walked through, or you may be paying $1.99 more a month, you know,
Right.
$4.98 more a month, $6.97 a month, more, but you're getting more channels.
So you're going to get significantly more service with digital than you were before, yet you might have that incremental cost.
You will be getting more channels, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
Thanks for coming tonight. I wanted to ask you to take back to the company a question about your policy around prorated credit. We, as you, I'm sure well aware, we had an extended power outage with our storm recently, and many folks were without power, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and without cable as well. And I personally found that when I talked to the call center, they were quoting a policy back to me that since I hadn't called them within 24 to 36 hours of the start of the outage, that they weren't going to give a prorated credit. They would give a flat $20 credit. And it took an escalation process and a considerable amount of time to get through that. And we even had conversations about that I might need to go back to Verizon for my telephone, so I had an open line that I could call the cable company, Comcast, to notify them within the policy guidelines of the outage. So I just especially think of course, in the days of cell phones, that's a kind of an insurance policy, but if someone doesn't have a cell phone and they have a bundled package where their voice is part of their voice package is part of their Comcast package, then when the power goes out, except for what's ever in the battery and the ability to call 911, they can't make outgoing calls, and they can't necessarily make that call within that 24 to 36 hour period. So I would just ask you to revisit that policy that seems to be overly restrictive for that credit or that prorated credit.
Can I ask a follow-up? Can I
Sure.
ask a clarification question? So was that for this storm?
Yes.
Okay, so I wasn't aware there was a flat $20.
Well, it was interesting. I don't want to. I've told the council the story already, but when I talked to the video
Yep.
arm of the
Yeah,
call center.
you had one for video, 2 for internet, and
Right.
yeah.
So I talked to the video guys, and it was a $25 credit. And then when he said it was a flat fee, I said, well, it should be prorated. He says, well, and he quoted the policy to me. And then he escalated it. And when I got escalated, the $25 credit went down to a $20 credit. And it was like, it's almost as if if you want to keep escalating this, we're going to keep dropping the amount of credit we're going to give you. And finally, I got to a manager, and she would do the full proration.
Right, and that's the policy as I understand it. I can certainly get a clarification. Get it
By
to
the way, where is the call center? I had trouble finding, I don't want to sound
No, that's-
xenophobic, but I had trouble finding people that
Thailand?
where English was their first language. It was a hard, I had a really hard time, had to listen very carefully to understand what they were saying to me. The manager, not so much, but the,
So I'll answer the question of where the call center is first. We have about 5 virtual call centers in the state of in New England. We have a call center in Manchester on Island Pond Road. We have one in Chelmsford, Medford. I'm going to miss 2 or 3 of them, but the closest ones here are Medford and Chelmsford and Manchester. We also have a very large number of our call center representatives working out of their home. We have a number of Londonderry citizens that work in our call center that are working out of their home.
Would you like to give out those numbers?
I would not. But thank you for asking. But I'm not going to tell you that sometimes we don't have outsourced partners, because we do. And it wouldn't surprise me in the wake of a storm where people like yourself were calling for credits. Our call volume was higher,
I
and
spoke to somebody in Asia, if that helps. I asked her.
our call volume was higher, and we definitely did count on some of our outsourced partners. Can you repeat the
that's
first part of your question?
and that's okay. It just made the communication a little strained, because I was trying to
Right.
communicate, and they were having trouble understanding me, and I was having trouble understanding the comments back.
And that was, you said you pressed, you were talking to the video side?
No, they transferred me to another arm of the call center. I can't quote you what
Right.
that was, but it was, when I objected to the flat credit,
Setting up in supervisors.
that was the first level of escalation, and then they were still at a flat credit, but they dropped it to a lower level. And then through another level of escalation, I got to the full proration.
Right.
But if I hadn't had the 30 or 40 minutes to spend on the phone and the patience to do that, I probably would have settled for the flat rate.
Yeah, and, New Hampshire law is kind of, I don't think it's really clear on it. New Hampshire law, I think, says credit. I don't know if the word
Prorated, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember, I don't know.
I'm not
I'll
sure.
have to check.
But let me talk about the storm and the credits, just kind of in a global sense. We are aware that plenty of people were without our services during the storm, and we will, call up and ask for the credit, and we'll get you the credit. I'm not sure about the flat rate or the proration, and as I said, I can follow up with Dottie on that. And I'm sure
Well,
Ms. Grover will
just
get
so
it to
you know, that what was quoted back to me was, because I hadn't initiated the call within the 24 to 36 hours, it defaulted to a flat credit. If I hadn't made that call, they said they would have prorated it. So that's, I'm sure they were probably reading back to me some index card that they've got to quote off of, and I'm just suggesting that you revisit that.
I will look into it, sir.
And I'm going to check the language in the contract that we have now, because if there's contract language that says it's prorated, that would supersede any policy that
There's
they have
people
in
I
place
spoke
for
with.
flat rate. So I'll check on that.
All the people I spoke with were polite, and they were professional. I'm just objecting to the policy, and I'm not objecting to how I was treated, just the policy.
Can I have one more thing? I've also, over the years, we've had many times when everything went down, power, the whole thing. And one of the things that some people are not aware of is that the power goes down, that doesn't mean cable's not there. It just means you can't see it. So your complaint call probably ought to go to PSNH first. And, because even if you've got a generator, people are going, but I've got a generator. And I said, but you don't have power on the street where they get their power from to run the cable. So that's one thing that people don't consider. But I have never had a situation where somebody called up to get a credit for a timeout, and they were told that, well, you didn't call us as soon as it started. It's after.
And that, as I
fact,
told
not
Tom,
during.
I called up probably around the same time frame. They gave me the full credit. No argument, no hassle. And that was from the lady in Asia. But
Got her number?
I do.
I could give her a call.
But anyway, in past storms when I've called up for the same instances, which we've had many in the last 5 years, it's been not an issue. So,
That's all I have.
huh?
No, I have no questions.
Joe?
I have no questions.
Okay. I've got one.
Or
Uh-oh.
two. So I had a question. One of the things I was thinking about was when it comes to my bill on the boxes, I have the boxes where you can do the DVRs and all that recording and stuff. And I noticed I've got not the top package, but the one below it, and it's how you guys lump it in and kind of discount this and that, and if you pull some stuff out, then the rate goes up here, so you're really not saving anything, so I just always leave it alone because it's a no-win. But anyway, one of the things that I have never really liked is the way we pay for the boxes, lease the box or whatever it is. It's $15.95 a month for the first box, and I believe it's $8.95 a month for the second one. And I've always had a problem with that because basically I'm paying, let's see, $230, no, actually it's more than that. Hold on one second. So basically I'm paying almost $300 a year just in lease fees, and that's just for those 2 boxes. And I realize there's a certain amount of technology and stuff that goes into the service. But what I'm thinking is it's kind of a boondoggle for me to be paying for the same boxes $300 a year, and I haven't had a new box now in, I don't know, probably 7 years. So, and I can tell you that I'm constantly rebooting the darn things. They're always going into boot, and I'm rebooting it in the middle of, watching my Bruins. Anyway, so my concern is that is some grief that I've heard from other people, not just myself, is that we're overpaying for the boxes, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed, because I think basically, it's a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? I can see incremental fees, like John was talking about with the little digital box, but these things really aren't doing all that much. It's old technology in today's terms, because these boxes were made from Cisco Systems years ago. I mean, we're talking probably circa 2002. So the only thing that it holds really is information coming from me, coming from you to my cable box.
And from you to us if you were to order an on-demand movie or something.
Correct.
But, so there's a couple of answers to your question, or your statement.
I'm sure none of them I'll be happy about, but
Well, there's.
There will be that guy delivering new boxes to you tomorrow.
Well, Councilor Farrell does make a point. If you're having that many problems with your box, you probably should turn it in. If it's 8 to 10 years old.
it's a matter of time. I don't have time to get to the cable. They always tell you, come on down. I'm like, when am I supposed to do that?
Right. But, there are cable cards available. You can buy a TV with a cable card. Theoretically, you're supposed to be able to buy a cable box that will work with our cable system. Notice I use the word theoretically.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that word.
There's no manufacturers out there that are found the market to sell those in a retail environment.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit of having, it's sort of like the modem versus the lease modem. It's sort of in the same vein as, our updates, again, theoretically should take to those boxes better and quicker.
I've got one of those too that I'm paying for. I just figured I'd keep it to this to simplify it.
So
all I'm asking you to do is, I realize that this is me as a consumer, okay? And it's, I'll say it for what it's worth. I would appreciate it if you took my feedback and presented it to your bosses, because all I'm telling you, and I know it's probably not going to make a difference because this is way above you, but honestly, it's a ripoff. And I'm going to state it clear as day. I'm not complaining about the service because I've got no issues with that.
Right.
But my issue is with paying for, these old, outdated boxes, X amount of dollars a month, and I'm really not getting anything in return for it. All I'm doing is, it's basically, it's a nice way to make money for you guys, because pretty much you're charging everybody a rental fee for these boxes, and what are you really getting for it? So that's my question, comment, whatever you want to call it.
I will take it back, Mr. Chairman.
And I will make you an offer. If you would like to drop your cable box off at my studio, I can turn it in and have a new one ready for you when you come home. As
Might
I
have to
know,
do that.
sometimes going up there, it's not a problem. I know sometimes going up there, there are long lines, it depends on what time of the day you can get there. And it does take a while sometimes to get the work done, so I don't have a problem with that.
Are they even open on Saturday still?
We're open till noontime
Yeah.
Are they?
on Saturday.
Yeah, maybe I'll try that. It's kind of difficult. We end up babysitting my grandson on Saturday, so
Oh, you have
maybe
a
we'll take a little
grandson.
road trip. That's all I really had. I appreciate you coming in. I think we have a citizen that would like to comment, so come on to the microphone.
Yeah, thanks for the explanation. I mean, people need to understand what's happening in their own home, and it's very much appreciated.
If I may, it's a complicated business and product now. When I was growing up, it used to be, cable out of the wall to your TV, and you get your 10 channels, and is the TV plugged in, is it on, and that's it. But unfortunately,
Looks older than,
it's a long time in that.
he's older than he looks.
Well, I remember when, when we first moved to Londonderry, I think it was in '79, that was when they first started having paid channels. I remember we had this preview antenna up on it. You got one channel.
Right.
Kind of remember that, but anyway. Richard?
Hey, Richard Belinsky, Hall Road. I went over some of the stuff with Brian when we were out in the hall, but Sean, on what you were just talking about, when all this conversion started, I started making some calls because I was having some problems. And I was told that by 2012, roughly in the next 2 years, that it will be changing again. I was talking to Brian about this. I was told by a Comcast employee that I called that I guess there's some federal law or something coming out that's going to require them to allow you to buy your own equipment. And that's supposed to happen in 2012. I don't know that it's true. That's what I was told by a Comcast employee. And one of the cards they send out references some changes coming by 2012, so maybe that's what it is. By the way, you may want to go out and get a new box, because in January you'll be able to download from your computer to save for a program if you're at work, and you won't do it with your old boxes. Second thing is got a lot to do with the consumer side. You have the new boxes, and I was talking to Brian about this. You have those new digital boxes, and you actually lose some quality with those, in my opinion. Before we had those, you could get Channel 5 digital. You'd also get Channel 5.1, which would be over-the-air high def. Now you can't do that. So if you have those on your TVs, you're losing that, because there's no bypass switch in the box to bypass their converter to get those stations. So the only way around that is to start putting an A/B switch in before the box, go to your TV, switch over. It's not real convenient for the consumer. There's no reason why you should be tied into having to get HD stations that you can get, and there's probably, 12, 14 of them that you can pick up without getting an HD box from them. I mean, I have one, but I have 8 televisions in my house. The remote controls that come with them is another inconvenience in those boxes. If you get sleep timers or anything on your televisions, you got to have both remotes around. I don't know if there's something they could upgrade the remote so you can program it to your television for those things. You're talking batteries in both, keep track of both, just
That's the hard part.
keep track of them. Well, with 8 of them, I got 16. 17, because I don't need one on one of them. Remotes, losing station, changing in 2 years. A lot of the other has to do with
No, that's a straw.
when you call in on any problem down there, training. You can't get a straight answer. I mean, they're polite, but you can't get a straight answer. I've had numerous problems with the boxes. That's why I say, Sean, go down. They got some real nice new Cisco ones. Bigger hard drives and everything in them.
So as they don't stop, as long as they stop from rebooting all the time.
Yeah, mine doesn't reboot. And I'd like to be able to have a number that we can get a hold of locally where we can talk to somebody about this. A lot of times Dottie has helped me out in the past, but there should be somebody we can talk to local, because you get Asia, you get who knows where you're getting it. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that with the new stations that are coming on tonight, if you go in there, because I'm trying to figure out what stations I'm supposed to get now, and if you go on their system and try to get a card for your tier and figure out what stations you're supposed to get, there really isn't one that's clear for Londonderry. kind of says, I think it says Auburn and Hudson or something, and it's Windham and Londonderry and down the bottom. So, Brian, if that's something they could do, they could update after they do the upgrade tonight, you know, in the next week, 2 weeks, so we can actually get a card.
I didn't know we were getting new channels.
Yeah, I actually have the latest one that I can leave with you. I haven't put any markups on it, and
Does that include the stations that are getting uploaded tonight?
it does include the stations that will be uploaded tonight. As to getting a Londonderry specific channel card, it will be grouped in with your neighboring towns because you have virtually identical channel lineups.
Well, that's okay, except they'll have in bold print, I forget the towns, you know, Auburn, Hudson, and I'm looking at it and say, where's Londonderry? And then way down the bottom in tiny little letters with an asterisk is Windham and Londonderry.
Right. Yeah,
I know it isn't specific for each town, it's in an area. You know, there again, you look at your bill and I got the triple play thing and I don't know I know what tiers I think I have, but it just, because I went from a bronze thing when it was Adelphia and they switched it over.
And I'd just add that what Richard's saying about the customer service and not always getting the right answer or the same answer, this is something that Brian and I have talked about a lot. I think that customer service has come a long way because I haven't heard any complaints about a rude customer service person in a very long time. I think that's really important. But I do criticize them sometimes that being a communications company, they need to do a little bit better communicating. And I will get my information straight from him or one of his peers, but the customer service person doesn't have that information yet, or they don't understand it. I don't know which. So that is something that I've made him aware of multiple times, and I think that they are making an effort, but I have a feeling that the technology is changing much faster than the CSRs can possibly keep up with as far as explaining it to people and what it means. And the same thing happens with packages. Things change and they're all scrambling to get the information. So do a better job communicating, okay?
Message heard, thank you.
Anything else, Richard?
No, the main thing I'd like them to work on is that bypass, so you don't have to pay for another high-def box. I mean, you can do it your own, but now you gotta go and spend for AP switches, cables. Could have very simply been a bypass put in the box. You hit a bypass button, and it loops around it.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to ask Comcast a question? Come on up.
Yeah. Like him too.
Need you to state your name and your address for the record?
Keith Gagne, I'm 84 Hall Road. I have a consumer-type question like Mr. Farrell had. I just recently bought a new TV, and I paid a little extra because it was able to get a cable card in it, and when I went to get the cable, I kept getting all the notices where you need to upgrade, you need to get this box. I asked the question, does the cable card do the same thing as this doodad box? I was told,
A new phrase.
I was told, yes, it does, but it's $10 a month to get the card. Well, I spent extra for the TV so that I didn't have to have two remotes. I want to be able to use just the TV that I bought, but now I have to pay another $10 for this goofy card instead of a goofy box. That now I'm back to two remotes, and I mean, it wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't significant. It was an extra $40 for this TV over that TV because this one will take the card and that one wouldn't. And again, I understand, you know, you guys have to make money, but if I can get, I only have 3 TVs in my house, so the two, the 2 free boxes works, but why can't I get the card as opposed to the box?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So, Mr. Belinsky did actually bring your scenario up to me in the hallway, and I had an opportunity to look. So the cable card is supposed to be free. I don't know the specifics of your account, obviously. I can't imagine what that, it was probably $9.95 or $8.95 or something.
Yeah,
I can't imagine what it was. I can look, and we can get back to you, but I have it right here in front of me that I'd be happy to show you that it says 000. So-
Okay, so I can take one of those little boxes to your place
Return
and
it,
ask
yes.
for a card,
Yes.
and they shouldn't charge me for that?
They shouldn't charge you for the card, yes.
Okay, that That was my only question.
And call if you need
But,
help.
I know just enough about technology to be dangerous. I don't know all of it, but
so there was, and, again, I don't know the specifics. There was a change in August on cable cards and charging. So I'm not sure when you called, when the bill was, what information whoever was looking at it, if it was dated, if it was updated. I just don't know that sort of stuff. But there was a change in late August, early August, I believe, in the cable card pricing.
okay. That was my only question.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks for coming out. Any other questions for Brian? Counselor Dole? Okay.
I had one more question. In the world of iPads and tablets and so forth, Xfinity, which is Comcast,
Right.
has been advertising that the iPads or some of the tablets, it's not an iPad commercial, the tablets are compatible with Xfinity equipment and you can use the tablet as a remote and other functionality. Do our customers in Londonderry have equipment that's compatible with iPads?
They will be. So you can get, so yes and no, I guess is the answer to that question. There is some iPad functionality right now for the consumers in Londonderry. What is not available right now, but it will be at some point in the new year, hopefully earlier rather than later, is the remote TV function, recording, and that sort of stuff. That will be coming up in Londonderry, along with any room DVR and caller ID on your computer screen or your television set.
Now, what will need to be done? Will the consumer need to take any action, or is that all
Well,
coming
the any
from-
room DVR, they would. They'd need to take some action. They'd need to get different DVRs.
Is that just an exchange?
Yeah, it's an exchange, and it works. It works in my house because I'm a little like Mr. Belinsky. I have multiple TVs and multiple kids.
I think you said 15?
Huh?
15, I think, was the number.
No, I don't have that many, but I probably have. I think 3 DVRs in my house, and I keep looking at the any room DVR. I haven't done it yet. The caller ID on your TV and your computer screen, nothing needs to happen. It'll happen. You'll be watching TV one evening and see that Mr. O'Keefe is calling you, and it'll surprise
Then
you.
he won't pick it up.
Yeah. Or when my mother.
That's a good feature.
We have recording here.
So for those features that the consumer will have to take action, how will the community be made aware?
Yeah, so in any room DVR functionality, when those upgrades come in the iPad, if you can't blame us for not having a robust marketing arm. You can't watch a football game or a live sporting event or first-run TV without an Xfinity ad. So we'll be doing that, and we'll be doing direct mail as well.
Okay.
And I know the council and Dottie receive lots of my letters, and we'll be shouting that from the rooftops.
May I make a recommendation that when that functionality does become available, that you communicate it to Dottie, and that Dottie comes before us and makes us aware, and then we can also make the newspapers aware, so we can broadcast, we can let the community know about these changes so that they can take advantage of them. That's a customer satisfaction
Great.
element, I believe. And I have seen in other communities, I've actually seen that technology work, and it's quite impressive.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a little frustrating when Xfinity advertises the capability and you try to use it and it doesn't work.
Right. It's we're still catching up from acquiring
Where's your
a different
car?
company.
Philadelphia.
I understand. You don't want to badmouth Philadelphia. Their equipment was getting pretty old. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. All right, great. Brian, thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for entertaining the questions.
My pleasure. And Dottie knows how to get a hold of me, and I know Dave gets all my letters with my phone numbers on them. So
And just make sure she doesn't give your phone number out, because we will call you.
Well, I also want to make something perfectly clear. I don't know when this happened, but you may have noticed that at some point I got elected as president of Londonderry. And that was, somebody in the Comcast lineup decided that I should be the president, so I have tried to get that fixed now.
president now.
President
Don't
Lindner.
I suspect Mergefield got
Pretty
the
small
meeting
country.
somewhere.
Dave, Dottie's President Lindner.
There you go.
No.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Richard, step right up. So Richard, just to lay the groundwork, the ground rules, I'd only like to give the subject 5 minutes if possible.
Well, Richard Belinsky, Hall Road. I was perusing the minutes one night, and I noticed the September 12th, 2011 minutes, which, by the way, you might redo because it says September 12th, 2012.
It's because we're working into the
There
future.
was somebody that asked about the deputy treasurer in the town of Londonderry. And we were told, yes, we have one. He was sworn in April of 2007. So I looked at that date, and it bothered me. It bothered me because in 2001, when I was elected treasurer, I'm the one that looked into why we didn't have a deputy treasurer. Went to the state, spoke with the state. They sent me the information on what you're supposed to do and went over with me. And so I looked at that date and I said, well, it can't be right. So I talked to Dave about it last Thursday or Friday, and he says he got an opinion from Bart Mayer that what was done was legal. Well, I wholeheartedly disagree. The term of the deputy treasurer runs concurrent with the term of the treasurer. The last time the treasurer was elected was in March of 2010. That means his term ran out in March of 2010. Got reelected, had to be sworn in. Well, for whatever reason, going by the minutes in the meeting and what Dave told me, last time John was sworn in was in April of 2007. Therefore, he's not deputy treasurer. The only way you can make him treasurer, and this is more a procedural thing, not really so much John, just happens John's the person involved. The only way you can make him by law is in the absence, sickness, or resignation of the town treasurer, you can bump him up to treasurer till the town, basically what you did. But the problem is he wasn't deputy treasurer because he wasn't sworn in again in 2010. So you can't bump somebody up that wasn't the treasurer. And that's how it was done according to the minutes of your meeting. The other way is if there is nobody according to the charter, you can put somebody in the position until the next, basically the same thing. But the town's come to the point where they want to start posting that stuff, get qualified candidates come in, you know how that works, interview, so on and so forth. But that's not the way it was done. I kind of been told that while his term doesn't run out, well, it does run out. It runs concurrently with the town treasurer. If it didn't run out, then John Conley was never the deputy treasurer. It would still be the deputy treasurer I put in place in 2004, which was Ken Barton, because Ken never resigned. All right, so the way I'm looking at it, you don't have anybody that's legally signing the checks right now. You know, if we got an opinion for Bart Mayer, I'd like to see the opinion and see what law it's based on, because I got all the RSAs here and they're quite clear. I looked them up again, and the same ones that were sent to me in 2001 when I explored this whole thing to make sure we had somebody in the case of something happen, which, as most of you know, did to me in 2002. It was only for a few days, but it could have been permanent. So I guess you guys must discuss this, but I'd like to know if anybody had any qualms about this, because it really is quite clear. I don't see where there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it. If he had been sworn back in again 2010 after that election, everything's fine. There isn't a problem. But your minutes don't show that. Dave agreed that that was the date when I spoke to him. He wasn't the deputy treasurer. He shouldn't be signing checks, which leaves you with a problem. Who signs the checks?
So Dave, I'm going to defer to you on this one. Basically, from what I recall, we asked Dave, the decision was talked about with staff, and our basic question was, is this okay to do? So,
Here's the guidance we received from town council. It's RSA 4129A, as we all know, is that a deputy treasurer shall be appointed by the town treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, which is the town council of Londonderry. So the deputy treasurer is an appointed official. I think there's no dispute about that. And then we're next pointed to RSA 4157-A, term of office. Except as otherwise provided, the term of office of any appointed town officer shall begin upon his or her appointment and qualification for office, and shall end upon the appointment and qualification of his or her successor. And so Bart has given us an opinion whereby, since Bob Lincoln did not nominate and the council did not confirm any other person, that John Conley is the deputy treasurer until somebody else is appointed and qualified.
And that's meaning come an election.
No, the statute of 4157A says the term of any office, any appointed town office shall begin upon his or her appointment and qualification for office, and shall end upon the appointment and qualification of his or her successor. So the deputy town treasurer is an appointed official and keeps in that capacity until the treasurer appoints someone else. That's the advice received from town council based upon those two state laws.
And that's true if they were sworn in. They have to be sworn in for each term. Yes, they're appointed. Treasurer picks the person they would like, confirmed by the board, by the council. They still have to be sworn in. It doesn't continue. That would encumber the next treasurer. I went through this, and it was told specifically, it runs concurrent with the term of the treasurer. The problem here is he was never sworn in again. I was told he wasn't, and, you know, you can't say, well, he's appointed, so he doesn't have to be sworn in, because your minutes of Mayan was, and in your minutes, it says in 4/2007 he was. So we can't have it one way when we want, and another way when we don't want, because it works for us. This is procedural, and it's a major procedural thing. If I hadn't brought it up years ago, who knows if we would have even had anybody to put in, legally or illegally. So, you know, I think we need to look into this more, because quite frankly, I understand what Bart's trying to say, but the state told me specifically, no. They don't keep on forever.
So Dave, in regards to the swearing in, that sounds like what Richard's qualm is about, is because he wasn't sworn in. So I guess the question would be legally, needs to be asked to Bart. Does that change anything?
Is there an RSA that requires the deputy to be sworn in?
There's an RSA which requires that you have to be sworn in within 6 days if you receive a notice. And John never received a notice from the town clerk. If he had, he would have been. And Bart said, quite frankly, the simple way to correct the oversight is to have John sworn in. He's been nominated by the treasurer. He was confirmed by the town council under the statute. There has not been another person who has been nominated and confirmed after him, so he's still the deputy town treasurer, and so he should be sworn in before he performs any of the duties, which he was. That's the advice we received from town council.
He was in 2007.
He
Not
was
in
sworn in
2010.
again now.
He has to be sworn in each term.
Richard, I'm asking Dave a question. Pardon me. Was John sworn in again now?
Yep.
What we found was that neither town records nor John's records indicate that an oath of office was ever taken. And we also have no record of the town clerk directing in accordance to RSA 42-4 that John be directed to take the oath of office. So town council says is to swear John in. He's been nominated by the town treasurer. He was confirmed by the council. Before he performs any of his acts, he should be sworn in. He was, and so according to the advice of our town attorney, he served until the next town meeting, at which time whoever is elected will serve out the remainder of Bob Lincoln's unexpired term.
So let me just repeat this back and make sure I understand it. He was appointed in 2007, never sworn in. He was sworn in on what date now?
He was sworn in September of this year.
He was sworn in September of 2011,
That's correct.
and he now is serving in that capacity. I'm just trying to understand.
that's fine.
Right.
Okay, so he never took the oath, yet was the appointed person, and then he was sworn in when Bob resigned and moved out of town.
That's correct.
That's
That's correct.
Okay, so if he was never sworn in, there was no term for him to follow, he's only sworn in until March.
Yeah,
Of 2012.
The law is clear in that, even though Bob's got, I think, 1 or 2 years left in his term, the law is very clear whereby the appointed person serves until the next annual election. Then you have a shorter term to get back on the 3-year cycle.
Yeah,
Okay, I understand it now.
that's
That-
correct.
That actually makes some sort of sense. I understand what you're saying, but he was never sworn in, so he was never official. Yet he was appointed by the town treasurer. And he wasn't sworn in until 2011, so he can legally sign checks the way it's being presented, because he was never sworn in before. I understand, there's a difference of opinion, I understand that.
And
But
what I
that's what's
find
being
funny
said.
here is
Okay,
that-
I understand that, thank you.
What I find funny here is now after my call of last week, when I specifically asked if he was sworn in again, after 4 of 07, I was told no. Your minutes say no. Now, all of a sudden, magically, since the end of last week, we have a September date. Oh, that could have been told to me last week. All right?
Imagine
And if
we
it was
might-
nominated back in,
But, Mr. Chairman, point of order. I don't think there's anything magical about it. I'm sure there is a document that he's signed and he swore in that's, that's a legal document. I don't think there's anything magical about it. That's an inference
we're-
that's an inference that's a little insulting to the town staff.
well, was there any checks that were signed between April and when he got sworn in September by John Conley?
I have to check, I don't know.
I'd like to know that information. When did Bob resign officially? I know you, at the September 12th meeting, you accepted his resignation. I don't know if he had actually handed it in before that. I heard July, but I don't know that that's right.
I'd have to review his resignation letter, I don't know.
Because I'd also like to know if any checks were signed between March, between the election, and when John got signed in. I mean, because this is a major thing to miss. I mean, I spent two and a half months researching this when I got in office, because we didn't have anybody, and was criticized for it in the newspaper by a counselor, none of you, why it didn't come right up, because I had to research it, wonder why we didn't have somebody.
So, Mr. Chairman, it sounds like the question is back to Dave, and go from there.
So what are you looking for? I'll ask the question.
Well, it's procedural, it's nothing against him. I mean,
Okay,
you know,
well-
this is a major issue. If you have somebody signing checks who doesn't have the authority to sign checks, whether it's you, me, whoever, I mean, how do you miss this stuff? I saw a date of 4 of 07, and it rang my bell, when I was reading through the minutes of the meeting.
That's all.
Richard, I had this question too, okay? And my concern was, like you, that I thought that you'd have, your deputy treasurer, your term runs coterminous with the clerk, okay? We referred to chapter 42, section RSA 42-4, okay? It says you have to get sworn in within 6 days of being appointed. But it also says you have to receive notice. We've been advised that he wasn't given notification. And so, that being the prerequisite for the 6 days to start, it was Bart's opinion that we could swear him in. Now, you and I could disagree with that, but that's what a town attorney says.
But did he base that on any,
He's basing it on his reading of the statute, okay? So, and, I'm not thrilled with the reading, but I can live with it, okay? I guess my point is this. Who's objecting here?
I'm objecting.
Okay.
I don't want people who
But-
aren't authorized signing checks and
But,
spending my
but
money.
you're saying he's unauthorized. There's no law that says he's unauthorized.
Well, if he wasn't signed into September and he signed a check
Well,
between March
I
and
don't know
September,
about, I don't know about the, well,
then we have a problem.
well, you might, okay, but at one point here, he's been sworn in, okay? And the statute does provide that he has to be sworn in within 6 days of receiving notification. He received notification sometime, I don't know whether it's July or whatever those dates are.
Yeah.
And he's been sworn in, he's been acting as the treasurer. Is it the best procedure? No, somebody slipped up, okay, but is it illegal? I don't think so. It could have been done better, perhaps it could have been. But, what are we gonna do? Is everybody gonna give their money back? All the checks gonna be voided? Is that what you're proposing?
Well, we have people who are supposed to be running the town, and that's a major thing to miss.
No, I
I read,
understand that.
I went
and
through
it's-
minutes of a meeting, saw a date, and snapped with me, hey, there's a problem here. I read them beginning of last week.
And I did some research in this too, and I think the fallback position is if there's no treasurer, no deputy treasurer, then one of the selectmen or town councilors by statute is authorized to sign things. So,
That may be, not
well,
what the
no,
state-
well, I'm
It may
telling
be.
you,
I'm
that's
not
what I
don't
read,
know.
okay?
Not what the state told me years ago, but that could have changed since '04.
Right, but, I think what the whole scheme of the system is, so you don't have a problem, because,
Well, that's why I brought it up in '01,
right, so,
because we hadn't had anybody for years.
and all I'm saying is, it was a concern, I asked about it, and that was the explanation I got. And, like I said, am I thrilled with it? No, but I don't see anything wrong with it, because it doesn't say, in that section, it doesn't say anything that if he doesn't receive notice, his appointment is void.
Not disagreeing with you, that's why I want to know what happened between March and when he
But
got sworn
I
in.
don't think, Dave can find out, but I don't think that there was any time period where he was signing checks without being duly authorized to do it.
Well, there would be if he did it before he got sworn in.
No, I would
And I don't
agree
know,
with that.
that's why I asked the question.
I would agree with that, yes.
I don't know if that was.
Yeah, no, and
When he was.
I would agree with that.
Because I know Bob sold his house in July, but that doesn't mean he moved in July, I don't know when he moved.
Right.
It could have been July, could have been the day after for all I know.
Well, Bob was here for Old Home Day, and I actually saw him in September, I think, and it may have been his last day in Sue's office. signing
Very well,
stuff.
maybe, I don't know.
I don't, he was in there that day. I think I said goodbye to him because he was leaving shortly thereafter.
But I would like to know about the checks from March until he got sworn in.
Okay. Dave, can we provide that info?
We'll have staff put it on their list, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Richard. Okay, Lisa, your turn.
Hello, Lisa Drabeck, King Arthur Drive. I'll try to be brief. I'm reappearing, as you know. If you recall, about a month ago, I was here and I asked that the town council put an issue on the March ballot pursuant to RSA 662-A:3, which is essentially to ask whether the voters of Londonderry would like to put a commission into place to investigate the possibility of voting by wards in Londonderry. And if you recall, at the end of that discussion, a question was raised as to how Auburn, the existence of our one seat with Auburn affects that particular process and whether we would be able to proceed. So Town Manager Karen was tasked with communicating with the Secretary of State's office to ask precisely that question. And as I understand it, and he has communicated to me, the Secretary of State's office basically said, no, go ahead. If you want to go forward with that process and put it on your ballot, you're able to do so. I think there may have been some confusion, and it may have been my fault that I didn't adequately communicate it last time, that the number of representatives that are allocated to Londonderry is a completely separate issue from whether or not we go forward with looking into the issue of ward voting. The number of representatives that we ultimately get will be decided in Concord based on the results of the census. There's a formula, there's a certain number of representatives per unit of population, if you will. So that has absolutely no impact on whether or not we eventually go into a ward system. So, I'm not here necessarily to debate the merits of the issue, because I think that that's something that the commission would ultimately look into. How many wards there might be, what would be the best way to divide, whether it's a better system than what we have, that sort of thing. Again, I'm just here looking to start the process, and you as the council is empowered by the statute, should you choose to do so, to put the question on the ballot. And again, The question would specifically read, and this is not me, this is the language of the statute, shall the town establish a redistricting commission to divide the town into 2 or more districts for the purpose of electing representatives to the general court? So tonight, again, I'm here to request that the council do that pursuant to the authority granted to you by the RSA.
Okay, well, thank you, Lisa.
Sure.
We'll bring it to the council. So,
Do we
John?
have to, if they, let's say the town voters approve doing this, then do they have to, like the charter commission, they have to run?
Well, actually, the only difference between this process and the Charter Commission is that the council by statute appoints the redistricting commission members. But it
Okay.
follows the same exact time frame. You gotta issue a preliminary report and a final report within a date certain. It's gotta go back for the voters at the following town meeting.
Right, and when they wanted to do the charter commission, didn't we have to get something like 2% of the voters? What was the number of signatures we needed to put that on the ballot?
I'm not sure on that one, but on RSA 62A is 25 or more registered voters, or 2%, whichever is less. So obviously for Londonderry, it's 25.
And for the charter commission, for some reason, I remember it being quite a bit higher or something. I think it was a larger number. Okay, I'm all set for the moment.
Mr. Chairman, I've had an evolving thought on the citizen petitions, that there's been a number of them over the past several years. And I don't know if this is consistent where I was so many years ago. I'm getting too old, I get forgetful. But my thought is that while the council has the prerogative to take these issues and put them on the ballot, and I think we've done that in the past, we as a community, what inevitably happens is the council, rightly or wrongly, is viewed either supporting the citizens petition or not supporting it and campaigning against it by our support or lack of support of these issues when they come forward. And I think that can be a powerful thing, because many voters will look to the council and say, well, what's the council think? And if they don't like it, then I don't like it. Or if they think it's a good idea, then it's probably a good idea. There's some percentage of people that will make their decision that way. What I would recommend to my fellow councilors is that on this petition, as well as other petitions, that when the citizens come forward, our responsibility, I take it as our responsibility to help them with the legal language of their petition, to give them advice as to how to proceed, whether they need to navigate through the Secretary of State, whether they need to go to the Department of Revenue, whether they need to talk to the finance director, if it's a financial question, and so forth. And that we ought to be taking a hands-off approach, that this is an initiative by citizens, and the citizens, I think, should get the signatures, and as opposed to us using our prerogative to put it on, because I think when we do that, it tends to some people, indicate our support for the petition. My view is we should be neutral on these petitions, since they're initiated by citizens. And let the citizens have the debate in the community. We'll help guide the process to make sure it stays legal, and make sure that we don't get to the end point and say, well, you tripped over a statute here, or there's some technicality that voids the whole effort, and therefore it can't happen. I think that my advice to council is that we sit back and let these petitions come forward. Like I said, make sure that they're legal, make sure that they're robust, and then let the community decide what the community's going to decide. Because I think that is the fairest way to do it, because we're people, and we're going to see petitions come forward that either we don't like or that we're really for, and we can, I think, inappropriately influence the voters one way or the other. And I would prefer to see citizens' petitions decided by the citizens, and that our job is just a legal advice and counsel. That's my thought.
Okay, thanks, John.
Dave, you said that the council, if this passes, the council actually appoints the members of the commission?
That's correct.
So it's on election?
It's not an election.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, that's a problem for me, because I I think if we're going to be appointing the people to the commission, I think, with all due respect, we should have a hands-off approach to seeing whether this comes before us or not.
Now you know why I asked the question.
Yeah.
I didn't know the answer. As soon as
Yeah.
I heard it, I was like, ooh.
I mean, I actually thought it was like the Charter Commission, and they were elected, so that we wouldn't have anything on it. But, okay, thanks.
Yeah, like Councilor Dolan, I think that this is more of a state issue, and it should be decided by the citizens instead of the council, as far as whether or not it should go on the ballot, so.
All right, honestly, Lisa, I did give it quite a bit of thought. I'm sure you remember a couple of years ago, I was one of the counselors who decided to, bring it to the council level as far as changing the town meeting. I felt that a couple of years before that, there was an impetus of citizens that had wanted to have a consideration of that. I believe it was somewhere south of just under 600 or so. And they, for whatever reason, they didn't get they didn't get legal advice, and the council wasn't able to act on it. So, to me, the reason I supported doing that was because I felt a lot of the work was already done, and that's why I did what I did. On this particular issue, I have a couple of thoughts on it myself, on why I'm not for it, but it's always good to consider everything. But I agree with Councilor Dolan and with Joe. I think that what we're looking at is something that if the voters feel it's, something they want to do, then they should be the ones pushing for it and bring it to us to put on. Again, like I said, you did the right thing. You contacted Dave. You're following the process, and that's what other petitioners have done in the past. And I believe back then too, back when Rep. Baldessaro was trying to push the gay question on that.
Marriage is only
Marriage.
between a marriage question.
The marriage question, I'm sorry. But it was twisted the other way in the public because they made it out to be a gay issue, but it wasn't. But anyway, I think when it came to that, there was a lot of people that came against it. There were a lot of people for it. But the end result was that we didn't take a position on it. Rep. Baldessaro had to go out and he had to get his signatures, and he did that. So this is kind of, I'm looking at that from trying to play it level, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you respect that. I think that's what we're looking to try to do, is be consistent.
I do.
So-
I appreciate that. Again, I was just following the procedure of the statute, and I'm happy if the council is not taking a position one way or the other. I don't want that to be,
Well, I think the tipping
out
point-
there in the public either. That, like you said, it can be debated in the public.
Right.
Assuming we get the
And
signatures,
there's
which
nothing wrong with
is
that.
not a problem.
But again, to show an impetus that people want to make a change, I think,
Right.
that's kind of the best way to handle it, I think. Is go out, show their support for it, and then bring it forward, and then talk about it.
Yeah, and to reiterate, my tipping point's like Tom's. Once I figure I have to be in a position to make an appointment later, I think I have to be 100% objective. And like we're learning with the budget process, ask the people.
Yeah.
And see what they have to say.
Right.
And,
Nothing wrong with asking the people.
Excuse me.
And it's a fair question, too. I mean, I think this is the most active year, and I don't know if it has anything to do with being the chair or not. I don't think it is, really. I think it's just people are taking more of an interest. And I think the biggest thing I've seen this year is I've been getting contact from people I've never heard from before, people that bump into me at the store. I mean, I usually go stealth in the morning. I'll wear a hat and go to Market Basket early in the morning on a certain day of the week. I won't give it. And people ask a lot of questions, and that's fair, and it's fine. But I guess the point is there's a lot of people asking questions about budget things. How come we're not cutting this? How come we're not cutting more? Then you have the opposite of, people saying,
Right.
why aren't we spending it on this or that?
Sure.
We can't be everything to everybody. However, the process in which we have is that we're going to come up with a budget soon, and then at that meeting, you guys can come up and say, you know what, that's not good enough, we want to add more to it, or we want to take away more. That's your option as citizens and voters.
Right.
And everybody has that.
Dave, Can you advise when they have to have the petition in?
January 10th, and please submit it earlier in the event it has to be registered voters, and we've had
Right, to
folks in the
verify the
past who haven't
signatures.
registered with us, so we can let you know
25 signatures gets it done,
of registered voters.
of registered voters.
Confirmed registered
That's right.
voters.
Right,
So get 50.
No problem.
just in case.
Okay,
But
thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Pauline?
I'm Pauline Karen, 369 Mammoth Road. I want to point out to you that under RSA 91A, when you have a non-public meeting, it is to be listed in the agenda. I believe you had a non-public meeting tonight, and it's not in today's agenda.
We didn't have a non-public. We had a non-meeting, which is not required to put up.
A
It's
non-meeting?
with legal counsel.
Okay, but I just wanted you to be
We're very
aware
aware
of
of
that.
it. Yep, we're
Thank
very
you.
aware. Appreciate it. But yeah, tonight we had a non-meeting with legal.
Can I comment on that?
Absolutely.
Because that's confusing to the public to
Sure.
hear. When you hear the term a non-meeting, how can you have a non-meeting meeting? It doesn't, it's a twisted word. It doesn't make sense. So what that really means is that the meeting that we had is not covered under the provisions of 91A. There are no minutes that are required to be kept, and there's no notice that's required to be made to the public, and that's under the provisions of meeting with the attorney for specific legal guidance. Okay, and that, when you hear a public body say, we had a non-meeting, say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That's what it means. It means that you had a meeting that's not under the jurisdiction of the RSA 91A.
Thank you, Counselor. He does give us the facts better than I do sometimes. He's been doing this a while. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. All right, can I get a motion to open a public hearing?
So moved?
Second.
Motion and second, Counsel Frida? Bless you.
Take the vote now. I'm going to check on that other meeting.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are now in public hearing. Okay, ordinance 2011-11. Can I get someone to read it?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Introduction, 11/21/11, second reading, public hearing, 12/5/11, ordinance 2011-11, an amendment to the municipal code, Title 4, Chapter 4, and 9-A, Title 2, Chapter 3, and Title 6, Chapter 4. Whereas the Section 3.10 of the Town Charter requires a decennial revision of codification of the ordinances of the town, and whereas the Town Council established an FY11 goal to review all town regulations and procedures in an effort to eliminate inefficient processes or regulations, and whereas administrative and statutory changes require edits to various chapters, now therefore be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Londonderry that the municipal code of the Town of Londonderry, Title 4, Chapter 4, junkyard dealers, Title 4, Chapter 9-A, individual sewage disposal systems, Title 2, Chapter 3, special regulations, and Title 6, Chapter 4, safety regulations are hereby amended pursuant to the attached summary. So moved.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Okay, so Dave, I'm going to give this over to you. If you could just give us a rundown of what we're looking at here.
We need a
Sure.
second.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did the motion and second to go into public. Yeah.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first change is to the junkyard statute, the local regulations, to have it align with the new state law, which changed the license renewal date to July 1st, from April 1st to July 1st. It's simply, that's the only change we had on the first title. Title 4, Chapter 9A, establishes the regulations for on-site septic systems, which are any questions with those. Richard, our senior building inspector, health officer, and can answer any questions. Richard will be returning later on with recommendations on the RSA 41 9A to look at a different fee structure. The third set of changes deals with traffic safety special regulations, and essentially that allows, for example, the police department to establish temporary traffic measures like in events like Old Home Day, where you're not going to have temporary, we're not going to have permanent regulations, which would be enforced year-round just for special events. And the last one, I believe, deals with our safety regulations. I'm trying to find that.
It says complete rewrite of safety manual.
Yes, yes, it is, yeah, which was worked on with our insurance carriers to ensure that we're complying with both best management practices and also that we are in compliance with a state law for joint loss management committees. You're required by state law to have a joint loss management committee between labor and employees. We have an active committee which meets quarterly, and a representative of our insurance company attends all of our meetings to review any kind of hazards, also review any kind of accidents we've had on site to see if there are different policies and procedures which we can implement to hopefully avoid those recurrence of those events in the future.
Excellent, okay, thanks, Dave. Council, do you have any questions?
No.
No. Okay, open up to the public. Anyone have any comments or questions on this ordinance? Okay, seeing none. Bring it back to the council. All those in favor of ordinance 2011-11 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, motion passes 4-0. Okay, ordinance 2011-12.
I'll read it. Ordinance 2011-12, introduced on November 21st, 2011. This is the second reading and public hearing scheduled for today, December 5th, 2011. An amendment to the zoning ordinance relating to an amendment to the demolition delay ordinance. Whereas the planning board has received a request to amend the demolition delay ordinance, and whereas the requested zoning would increase the age of a structure subject to the provisions of the ordinance from 50 to 75 years, and whereas the planning board has recommended that the town council act favorably upon these requests, now therefore be it ordained by the town council of the town of Londonderry that section 5.3.2 of the town zoning ordinance be amended to change the retrospective time frame from 50 to 75 years.
Second.
Okay,
So move as written.
okay.
Second.
Well, I got Tom, and then John did second. So we got a motion and a second. Discussion? Council? Is that Joe?
I'm all set.
Tom?
I'm fine.
Tom?
This is our public hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Demolition delay.
Yep.
Are we going to hear from the public?
Yeah, we will. I'm just going to the council.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Okay.
Okay. Anyone from the public? Okay, seeing none. All right, back to the council. All those in favor of ordinance 2011-12 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, 5-0. All right, that's it for public hearing. Can I get a motion to come out of public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, motion passes 5-0. Okay, old business, there is none. New-
I actually have something, if I...
Oh, yeah,
could.
go ahead, absolutely.
It's actually, Dave, I know, I'm sure nobody wants to hear the word budget, but I actually had a thought. I was a little surprised, frankly, about the adds to the default, and I voiced my opinion at the last meeting to say that I thought that it would be important to identify areas that we would suggest as a council to the manager, town manager, to actually allocate those funds. And I was surprised at the amount of things that were on this list. There's, a good 27 ads, and I understand there was a proportion or a percentage of each one of those items designated to fulfill some of the percentages that each person wanted, each director wanted to increase their budget. But I thought we talked about trying to stay within the actual expenditures that had been year over year kind of overlooked or kind of underfunded. So one of the things I looked at was when we were talking about $300,000, we were talking about, I thought, mostly OT. and the overtime from the departments was $174,473, and from overtime for snow was $32. And again, these were based off of the best projections, not only based off of actual expenditures, but also based off of what we felt we would incur. So that came out to $206,000. In addition to that, we had a $94,873 fuel that we thought were our best estimates based on the amount of the price that the fuels gone up. So those two totals are $301,346, which would eat up, if you want to talk about actual numbers, would eat up most of that $300,000. And frankly, things like, I guess I don't have to name them all, but library operations, community development, additional fire and police operations, interns, IT purchases, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of them here. So I'm just asking, I guess, what the council thinks about that. I mean, in reality, what we're doing is we're actually funding some of these things that were kind of, to me, ads with the $300,000 instead of going to what I thought where we were going is kind of more to try to fund those numbers that we knew were going to actually hit in the budget for this year. So just wanted to.
So my understanding is just a little bit different from the standpoint of that. It's not that, my understanding is that we are going to look at trying to fund things for what the right amount should be.
Right.
But that we have given that job to the town manager to come back to us with his best recommendation. And if we don't agree with it on the 19th, then we're going to challenge it. I mean, I think that's where we are in the process.
Okay.
But, and then we may, hopefully, we're not going to make a decision to underfund things again in the future. That would be, and then my further understanding was is that we were going to take that information, take it to deliberative session at whatever the number is. I don't know if it's going to be 300,000 or not, and then present that to the citizens and then let them decide. But I think we put the onus on Dave to come up with how you're going to get that done.
So basically, this was a preliminary.
And I'm just trying to understand.
This is a preliminary. Hey, this is what I'm thinking about, and kind of chew on this till the 19th. I didn't. Again, this is my first year doing it. I thought, hey, this is an opportunity to bring it up, and
No,
so I apologize.
That's the right, no, don't apologize, that's the right thing to do.
It's the wrong time.
Maybe I
It's not.
misunderstood.
It's
I mean, you know, I just.
I'd rather try it if we can, if I guess my point was, if we kind of agree, like, yeah, this is, and no offense, Dave, but if it's the wrong direction that Dave's going, and it would kind of be nice to, before the 19th, to kind of redirect and kind of say, hey, hey, go back to the drawing board a little bit, I guess. I don't know. Because we have a lot of time between now and the 19th.
I don't know what direction you're going in there, right?
Again, I apologize if I misunderstood, but I didn't hear any specific direction what you were talking about this evening. What I was told was that the council, at least on a preliminary level, wanted to present a budget for citizen input at the level of $300,000 above default, and then it fell on to me to provide my best recommendations to the council as to where that ought to go. The 19th, the council is going to make its own decisions, and once you make a policy decision, that's what it's going to be. So I didn't hear any specific direction as to which line items to recommend for increases. And if I missed that, I apologize, but I didn't.
No, I don't think you missed it. I think that was kind of more my direction, and I think I asked a couple times Councilor Dolan, and I think he was very clear about saying that it was probably more of a bottom line, $300,000. But this is exactly my example that I gave tonight was exactly my fear. Nothing against you, Dave. I don't want to be funding additional items when we have such an stringent $300,000. We should really just stick to the items that we feel that were under budget and underfunded previously. I frankly would love to stay at default, but I'm trying to put more realistic spin on this and say, unless we cut other things, as we talked about, like cable and library, you brought that up, we're going to probably be over default. And so when we agreed to maybe look at 300,000, I was one council at least that said I would rather stick to the items that we know are definitely going to come up over, to staff vacations and to staff sick, the overtime, and the fuel with the cost coming up. Those are definitely easy ones to flag the 300,000. And so I guess I brought it up today to see how you guys felt and really kind of just drive that
That's
as
fine.
much as I could.
That's absolutely the right thing to do. Go ahead, Tom.
I think, Joe, it's good rationale. it's a good critical thinking process that you're going through. But there are a couple of realities that we have, that we're faced with. One is, we've noticed the public hearing, so the number that we noticed them can't change until after the public hearing. We can't go to the public hearing with a new number, or else the notice is not valid. Secondly, the budget, the town operating budget, which is what we're talking about, is a bottom line budget. While we give notional parameters to the town manager to shoot for, to stay within, when push comes to shove, he's got a bottom line budget to run the town. And if we have a freak snowstorm on the 1st of May and he's got to pay snow plows and salt, and the only money he's got left is community development money, he's going to spend it on snow plows and salt because it's an emergency. And it may be outside what we really wanted to spend it on when we crafted the budget, but he's got a bottom line that he runs to, and he has to pivot depending on the needs as they come up. So while we'll continue to give him notional thoughts at different line items of what this should be, what that should be, when the budget is finally approved by the voters, he's going to have around $25 to $26 million at the bottom line to spend. And, you know, hopefully he'll stay within our guidelines. I mean, we hire him, so, I mean, the consequences are that. But as far as line by line, it's not a line item budget, if you will. It's not managed at that level. So it's really advice and counsel that we give, and we have to stay within these numbers for the public hearing process.
All right, I understand we have to stay within the 300,000. So are you talking about that this is a procedural thing that you guys have done over the course of years? And I hate Dave sitting right there. I hate to even talk like this, but couldn't we just give him direction to say, no, I don't want to fund the extra this and the extra that? I mean, there's a lot of extras in here. There's a lot of ads that the public needs to understand that these are ads in a time that we really can't afford ads.
Well, like I said, it's notional.
Okay.
If there comes a line in our charter that we have to dance close to but not step over, and that is the part about we can't interfere with the day-to-day running of the town. That costs us our job. We can be kicked off the council for doing that, for interfering with the town manager's administrative duties and running the community. That's the way the charter was written, for specific reasons, so that there isn't those issues of cronyism and, gee, could you get Giannis to plow my street more often because I'm a whatever. I mean, that's when we step over the line and that we start directing him to do things that we're not legally able to do given our charter. It's really a hands-off of the day-to-day running, and quite frankly, I'm pleased with that we don't have, that we're not called into question to say, well, how come Andre was at your house raking your lawn? I mean, that's those, but in some little communities, those things happen.
Yep.
And you don't get, not with Andre, but you don't get that hands-off.
He didn't really do a quality job the last time.
You don't get that it's kind of a silly example, but that's kind of the example, that we don't interfere with the day-to-day running of the town. One thing, we're not competent in that skill set. And secondly, it leads to questionable decisions that we shouldn't be making. So we give a notional guidance to the town manager. He manages at the bottom line, and it's at his peril if he overspends and causes the budget to go out of balance.
So so on that same vein, if the budget is over balance, what happens? I mean, because we just said like 2 meetings ago that there were light, and I guess I'm just trying to learn this process, and I think that based on, comments that we've had, I mean, public wants to hear these things too.
What's happened in the past, when we've gotten too close to that line, the town manager will put various numbers of freezes in place, spending freezes, no POs to be issued, people won't be replaced if they attrit.
Right.
for a period of time until the budget refreshes and it's just so that we don't get, it's monitored very closely, and it's, it would be something you would have heard of in the auditor's reports if we had gotten ourselves in those conditions. So you'll see that in the final quarter of the year, in the April, May, June quarter, the town manager is closely watching expenditures to try to time expenditures with budget balance so that they don't overshoot. And if he undershoots a little bit, then that's left over and goes into the fund balance. The thing that he tries to do is hit it, get a hole in one, or get as close to the flag as possible.
I guess I'm not sure why we go through all the process then. I mean, if why we haven't gotten an opinion on a $17,000 additional line item in IT purchase when, we're supposed to comment about that, and that could be maybe gas for one of the trucks for a month.
It's a great question. It's a great question. And we have taken positions in years past. We say to the town manager, we want a budget that is X. We're done. And he goes off and he figures it out. I mean, we've done that in the past because of that reason. I mean, we spent so many hours, this line item for paper and pencils is $110. We want it to be $95. Down to the $10 to $15 level. And Dave's happy to let us go do that. But it doesn't have a lot of impact in what we can then command the town manager to do in day-to-day running of the town, because we can't. I mean, it's really an exercise that doesn't have a lot of payback and just eats a lot of our time up. So I don't think we should completely back off, but we just need to recognize that the recommendations that we give Dave are notional. And they're not, you must do this, because then you run afoul of the charter that says we can't interfere with the day-to-day running of the town. And that's, in my opinion, that takes us into that, takes us over that line.
Section 1.2 of the charter. So if you want to.
Yep.
And then page 12 of the charter talks about Dave's responsibilities.
Dave? Joe, just to give you an idea of the practical application of what we go through is that, if town meeting approved a $25 million budget, and of that, $7 million is the police department, I use that as a Bible, because there's a community expectation that police service will cost us $7 million. So we follow that to the T, unless there are extraordinary circumstances. And it's happened a number of times, not in the recent years, but in the early 2000s, whereby we had a significant overage in the fire department for usually overtime. So Janos will tell you that he couldn't spend all the salt budget, because it's the bottom line. If I've got $25 million, I may have $3 million in undesignated fund balance. I can't spend that because it's not appropriated. So I stick to what is approved by the council and town meeting as best we can. And if there are, I call them minor emergencies, I take care of those myself. Any major policy directions or shifts come back to the council for input and votes on those. So it's not like you're giving me $25 million and go have fun, I'll see you in a year. We don't, we follow the approved budget as best as we can, because there's a community expectation of how the resources are going to be allocated for that fiscal year.
And it was just eye-opening to go through the process to see that, they were underfunded, but yet, of course, somebody still had to pay the bill. So you're saying, so if it's underfunded and the bill still comes up, just saying with those two OT and fuel, so the bill comes up that we're $95,000 underfunded. Okay, so that $95,000 is going to come from somewhere else.
Either from within that department budget or from someone else's budget. I'll have a directive. You cannot spend X on Y project because we need that money for fuel.
Okay, so it won't come out of some rainy day fund.
We have a bottom line budget. Once town meeting approves that number, that's all we're legally allowed to spend.
Yeah, and then section, if you want to see more on it, section 4.8 of the charter talks about non-interference with town administrators and talks about any violation of this provision by this section by a council shall constitute grounds for forfeiture of office under provisions of section 3.3 of the charter. So the charter, I mean, the guys who got together and wrote the guys and gals who got together and wrote this charter did a pretty good job. And it's very clear that, well, any one of us can make a suggestion to Dave, It doesn't necessarily, he can take it into consideration, it might be a good suggestion, he may decide differently, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm glad this all came out, because when the public comes to us and say, hey, how come you didn't do this and how come you didn't do that, they understand what our purview is. We don't have the direct authority, so we'll keep throwing them at you, Dave.
And the response we'll get from me is, absent an emergency, that project will get done.
Right.
But an emergency, I mean, I can't overexpend the bottom line, so if
You know,
lines
you-
come in high, I've got to compensate by taking from other lines.
Like Sean was saying, you go into Market Basket and somebody's like, are you kidding me with those IT computers? I mean, they may be ancient and they may need to be replaced. I don't know, I'm not as close to it as you are, so like Councilor Dolan said, we trust that you're gonna make the best decision on that. But when the public comes to me, I wanna try to have an answer as to why, and my answer will be, well, according to 1.2 of my charter and 4.8 of the charter, I don't have any lines of direction to give to Dave on that, so.
And then
Now we know.
to give you a little bit more input to some of your other questions, because between Dave and Tom, they explained it very well. The rationale as far as the budget and crafting the budget, the initial presentation is just a starting point. It's like Tom said, it's a point to put a public notice out to say, this is what we're thinking, come on in, challenge us, or tell us what your thoughts are. And honestly, I can tell you from my point of view, having been this 2 years and then 3 years before that with the Budget Committee, I think this year especially, it would have been, it's a lot more difficult right now to come out and say, I want a flat budget, because we know what the ramifications are going to be if you say that, all right? There are a lot of things that are going to happen if you do that, because we have so many statutorial agreements that we've made over the years that the voters approved that we have to pay for. And, those bills come due, and whether you like it or not, the responsibility is there for us to pay them. We made agreements. And I think that, this budget year is going to be tough. And I'm still thinking somewhere around default is going to be a fair number. And honestly, that may be all that gets passed at town meeting. So as far as the number goes, the number is a starting point, but that doesn't mean that's going to be where we end up. Because, even though it's a shortened window compared to how it used to be, it's still a window that people are going to get to sit there, offer their opinions up, tell us what they think. We've already had a number of residents came out and express their opinion on where they think we should be. So it's just a starting point. But that doesn't mean that in the end, this is going to be the final budget, not by a long shot.
And to Councilor Dolan's other item that he said, that we can't come back then on the 19th and say we want to be 300,000 under default, because that would change the notice, right?
No, what I'm saying is that once we have the public hearing, then it's, then
do whatever.
game on. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
Anything's up for grabs at that point, but we can't change it
Now,
until the public hearing happens.
like, we can't sit here and have a meeting now like we're doing and say,
Right now.
okay, Dave, we want you to take another $500,000 out of it, or,
But this
you can't
conversation
do
is
that.
okay to do, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Perfectly normal.
There's no vote, okay.
So, okay?
Yep, thank you.
All right, thanks for bringing it up. Good. Okay, that's that. So where are we? I kind of lost track. We're in new business. All right, new business. We have contracts. Dave?
Yeah, if we can take LAEA first, just to let you know is that we are currently negotiating with 3 different units, and we have reached a tentative agreement with 2 of those units, and we hope to have the 3rd unit before the council at your December 19th meeting. All 3 units are very cognizant of the current economic conditions, and the discussions were cooperative and fruitful. And the first item I'd like to ask the council to approve pending funding at town meeting is tentative agreement with LAEA Public Safety. LAEA is our mid-level managers. It used to be dispersed throughout the community. However, their membership voted to separate in 2 separate units. One is public safety with police and fire, and the other unit is town administrative personnel. On page 20 of your packet, there's a summary as to what the changes are. Essentially, they've agreed to a 3-year agreement of 0%, 2%, and 2%. We have also reduced the merit increase levels to 3, 2.5, 1.5, 0, and 0, which are almost half of what those increments were just 2 years ago. The units have also recognized the significant financial drain, potential significant financial drain to the town with the new retirement rules, with the 125 rule, which essentially gives us a supplemental assessment. And so the employees have agreed to defer any portion of any kind of end-of-service payouts beyond 121 days, which by statute means they can't consider those revenues as part of their final compensation. They've also have agreed to reduce the sick leave payout, and have agreed to, they may cash in for 6 days per year at the forfeit rate of 3 days for each day cashed in, and which will also reduce the maximum accrual rate, will drop from 90 to 85. There's also some minor bereavement issues. We'll also be offering an additional option with respect to insurance. It's a Luminos plan. It's a high deductible plan, and so what we've agreed is the town will essentially put a significant part of their savings in the first 2 years into a health savings account for the employees, and 50% of that amount in year 3 going forward. So, I think a lot of our young employees may find this attractive. The premium rates are much, much lower. The deductible is $2,500 a year per single, and $5,000 for a 2-person or a family. But if you look at the avoided cost for both the town and the employee, and you put a majority of that into the HSA, you actually can see an out-of-pocket savings for the employee and for the town.
It's like, that actually is, that plan that you just mentioned is a lot of the same things that are offered right now in public.
Oh, sure.
Public companies.
Absolutely. So the only cost to this contract in the first year is we've agreed with the employees' request that we increase their life insurance maximum to $100,000, which is enjoyed by both their supervisors and their subordinates. And the total cost of that benefit is $756. And it'll be the only cost reflected with this contract to be presented to the voters should the council vote to ratify the agreement.
Okay, Dave. Council.
I'm all set. They met our expectations.
I'm pleased that the unions have recognized the same economic conditions that we are recognizing as we deal with the operating budget. I think we're in alignment in our thinking, and I think that bodes well for the future.
Thank you. Tom?
I have no comment. I think this is exactly what we've been talking about, and I'm really happy that they came forward, and the staff has done a great job as well, getting us to this point, so I'm really happy with the result.
Thanks, Joe. Dave, I didn't think it was going to get done. Nice job. In the past, I know it's been particularly difficult with contracts. There's a lot of back and forth that goes on between the town manager and the staff, and trying to find what's fair and what's, what they feel is fair too, and fair to the taxpayers. So the fact that they did that we have no increase this year coming up FY13 it's a very fair thing for them to do, and kudos to them for doing it. And then years 14 and 15 are pretty minimal, if you ask me, looking at the cost.
Mr. Chairman, so our next, and Dave, help me, our next procedural decision here is when we take a position on the article.
That's correct.
Yes.
If I would ask that the council vote to accept this tentative agreement, so I can respond back to the unions, let them know that the council.
Do you need that vote tonight?
That would be very helpful.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Okay, well, we can take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, next, Dave.
The next agreement was with ASME 1801, which is our Public Works and Town Hall support staff represents 19 full-time and 2 part-time employees. It is essentially the same arrangement that we negotiated with LAEA Public Safety. The rate increases are 0, 2, and 2. You will notice that there is a cost associated with this contract of $6,764. Essentially what that is that's programmed step increases per the contract, which we cannot award if the contract expires. So therefore, we couldn't put it in the operating budget. We had to pull it out and then reinsert it back into the contract. And there are only 5 employees who are eligible for step increases, and the step increases are about 2.5% between steps. And this number represents the loaded cost being the compensation plus Social Security, retirement, and add-ons.
Is this the lieutenant compression issue?
No, this is just simply steps. I mean, these groups, they have about 12 to 15 steps between min and max, and they progress every year in a different step. With an expired contract, we cannot award those step increases, so we've got to pull them out of the contract and reinsert them back in.
Okay.
If the council approves. Again, they've agreed to language to avoid any supplemental assessment from the retirement system. They've also agreed the town will offer the Luminos plan with the higher deductible. The 3-year contract is 0, 2, and 2. Also, currently, the town hall employees work 8:30 to 5 with a half-hour lunch. That'll be 8:30 to 5:15 with a 45-minute lunch. The office will close at 5, but usually have people coming in at 1 minute before 5, and it takes 15 minutes to process a car registration, and which the employees have been staying over now, sometimes overtime, sometimes not. So we want to make sure we treat them fairly, and they'd be able to prep better for the next day. So, again, the employees were very mindful of economic conditions, and we ended up having a very cooperative discussion with respect to this agreement.
Okay. Counsel?
Once again, happy that they worked with us.
Tom?
Also, it looks like a good agreement. Tax increase in FY13 is 0, and on the tax rate, on FY14 it's 1 cent, and on FY15 it's 1 cent. So this is going to be a minimal or almost no impact to the taxpayers, which is excellent.
Pretty small number. Tom?
No. No
Yep.
comments.
Bravo again. Thank you very much, Dave. Great job.
Well, the employees are very cooperative. They deserve thanks as well.
Kudos to the
I
employees.
mean it.
Yeah,
I
thank
agree.
you.
I think it's great. I think it's a good gesture, and it's good that it is everybody working together on that. Okay, need a motion?
I'll move to ratify the contract.
Second?
Okay. All those in favor of ratifying the contract signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, 5-0. Okay, we got one more? Yeah, 1801, Dave?
And we used to do
I'm
that
sorry,
one.
yeah.
That was 1801?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Sorry, I thought that was the
1801.
other LAE. Okay, all
I
right.
think those are the only two we have for tonight.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Library technology plan.
Sorry, I was overreading. Okay. So let's see, that's it for contracts.
Technology.
Yep, I'm getting to it. Let's see, library tech. Barbara, if you guys would come up, that'd be great. Hello. Thank you for waiting till 9, I
Oh,
appreciate
no
it.
problem, no problem.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Ostertag Holcamp. I'm the library director, and with me this evening is Vicki Stokowski. She's the chair of the library board. We did give you some information prior for your review, and we wanted to go over 2 main things that were addressed in your resolution. The first being the usage of downloadables and ebooks and the trends. This is for last year. For fiscal year 10 to 11, we were a member of the New Hampshire Library Consortium that supplies downloadable audios and ebooks to the community. There was 169 libraries in the consortium in the state of New Hampshire. We ranked number 4 in circulation, only behind Concord, Manchester, and Nashua, but yet that circulation was only 1.84 of our total circulation, to give you an idea. And for comparison purposes, There's some individuals who might say videos are an obsolete material type, but we had 1.24% of the total circulation. So we actually had almost as many videos being checked out as downloadable audios and ebooks. A note on that is the library has stopped purchasing videos many years ago, but because people still check them out and we do receive donations, if we do receive a donation of a classic movie, we will put it in the collection because we still have community members using that, but we don't actually purchase them.
Quick question.
The other thing,
Barbara, when you
yes.
say videos, are you inclusive of tapes and DVDs?
No, that's just videos.
Videos.
VHS tapes.
VHS.
VHS tapes, yes.
So, another question on that, I apologize, as we go forward. How does one access the ebook from our library?
All you have to do is go onto our website, and there's a link right there. And you'll just click on that, and there's all kinds of information. It'll be instructions in terms of how you actually use it. You know, depending on what device you actually have, if you're not familiar with actually using the service and downloading the items.
How much of a selection do we have right now?
We have a lot because we, like I said, we're part of the New Hampshire Downloadable Consortium. There's 169 libraries. We all pull our money together, so it's a huge selection. I mean, we could never buy that.
No, and it allows a lot of savings because we pay, what, $2,500 a year?
Yes,
For that,
and that's
Barbara.
just gone up, correct.
And that's part of being the 169, so it does save a lot of money. And it gives us pretty vast variety.
Just figured I'd throw out a little public service announcement there.
Thanks, Joe. We can use that.
Appreciate
And we are fourth out of the 169 libraries, so that's pretty good, I think. Sorry to interrupt you, Barbara. Go
That's
ahead.
okay. The other thing we wanted to go over was there was a mention of self-check, and we wanted to let you know is we would need to buy a new library system to implement a self-check unit. Currently, we pay $600 a year for our library system. It's not, you know, a Cadillac version. I'm not going to say, you know, I mean, it's a basic system. A couple years ago, we tried to implement an upgrade to that system so we could have an online access to our catalog. When we did that, the cost was $4,000, and the annual fee was $495. The next system we were looking at, to give you an idea, to look at a brand new system, the cost was over $63,000. It was $63,800 with an annual fee of $10,000. Now, unfortunately, the upgrade didn't work.
For the $4,000 one, the
Exactly.
mid-grade. It just didn't fly.
Exactly. And so what we did is, basically, it was 2008. We know what happened in 2008 with the economy. We've never pushed forward because although we would like a new library system, it's sort of more of a want versus a need. And since this system works, we've stuck with it, and we haven't pursued it, basically for cost purposes. So.
And whatever things are in this IT plan does not reflect at all in our budget. You know, we have not done any budgetary processing for this.
If cost was not that prohibitive, would you want a new ILS?
Well,
I would say we would like a new ILS, but you'd have to weigh, we're pretty practical and frugal with our money over at the library. And you have to weigh what actually the community members would get for that additional costs. When you're looking at a system that costs $64,000 and you know, $10,000 a year, if the community is receiving a lot of things that they're actually looking for, it might be worth it. A lot of the systems, depending on what you're purchasing, some of the things are things the community would like. They'd be able to renew their books online instead of calling the library and having to do that. You could generate your own list of what you've checked out and track your items, etc. You would be able to just go to the online catalog and see what we have. Currently, You can go and see what the Leach Library holds. If you're interested in a specific item, even though you can't access our catalog online, you can go to the New Hampshire State Library website and go to New Pack, put in the title you're interested in looking for, and if we have it, it'll come right up. It'll say
Yeah.
the book will be there, and it'll say Leach Library. So I guess you have to sort of weigh, what the community will actually receive and if it's worth what you're paying for. If money was no option, Tom, in anything, there's, of course there'd be a lot of things we'd like to do, but I guess it's sort of such a
Let me change the
theoretical
question.
question.
I don't mean to.
I don't think
to,
it'll ever be true.
kind of a. Let me
Sure.
shorten a little bit.
Sure.
It sounds like I'm hearing that to upgrade the ILS was a $4,000.
No, that, yes.
That plan didn't work, Tom. Our IT, we did that, but the town's IT consultant and the vendor were unable to get that system up and going.
work.
And that was a good $4,000 versus what we're paying now is $600. Then the next step up is $63,800 and $10,000 a year. My opinion, it's an awful lot of money for what we get for it. As Barbara just said, we can pretty much get the same thing, it maybe not as expedient, but going to the New Hampshire Library website and doing New Pack, and it'll tell you what books the Leach Library has, what you're looking for. You can't, you have to make a phone call now to check your book out or renew it or whatever that is, that kind of thing. So you can't do it online. But is that convenience of being able to do that online worth $64,000 and $10,000 a year? Certainly not in these times.
That's what my head is, David, and I'm not sure if we can even go there, but we've learned that right now we have a fund balance at the cable center of about $500K. And that's typically reserved for technology items. Would that be a source that we could appropriate some amounts for non-cable technologies, like a library technology?
Not directly, because the statute requires that if you draw from those special revenue funds, surplus, it's got to be for the purpose for which it was placed in the funds, would be only for cable-related issues. The indirect way you could do it is you could, I know it's a sensitive subject, but you could redirect a greater portion of cable franchise fees from the fiscal years going forward to other projects, which are not restricted by law, and then rely upon the undated fund balance to pay for cable operating expenses. So essentially, you draw down the cable surplus that way. That's an option.
I was thinking more of specific. I get kind of nervous when things get into recurring operating budgets, but
Sure.
specific things. For example, if the library said, gee, we had this $50,000 piece of technology that we wanted to invest in, but we just don't have the operating, we don't want to sacrifice our operating budget to take that step, and therefore, maybe the library's stuck because of that. The pill's too big to swallow. I'm just looking for ways to help the library so that it doesn't tip over their operating budget, but also doesn't become a recurring feeding trough, if you will. It's an unfortunate use of that term, but it's, we don't want to build it into the operating budget. Typically, how we use the town's fund balance, that if we want to buy a truck or if we have some some non-recurring expense, usually a capital expense, we might appropriate money for that. I'm just.
Well, thank you for that thought, Tom. I appreciate it. If I... Well, wait, one thing I wanted to ask Barbara, and I'm not 100% certain, but I know when we had the ice storm, and the library was full of people using Wi-Fi, and we didn't have enough Wi-Fi capacity to handle that. So our router...
Yes, we need a new router.
We could use a new router. But I know in the town...
Power outages are quite regular around here now, so.
Well, that's it, Sean, we figured...
Well, a router might fit the cable definition then.
I think they were addressing the internet issue at the shelter, and that may give some relief to the library.
Yeah, it may be both places.
Well, three places, obviously, because this is the first time we hear, not tonight, this is the first event we've had in which that has been a demonstrated need. And this is an unsecure wireless access in this room as well, so we'd publicize this room as being available for people who want to
Oh,
come
okay.
And
Now, would
use-
that be an appropriate expenditure of those cable fund balance?
in. No, cable fund balance for this particular room would be if they had to replace the cameras and the microphones, but as far as the IT, that would come from the IT budget.
Yeah, this is unrestricted, I know for sure, because I was here, sitting right here in this room.
Right.
Given the economic times, we'd be happy to not have our budget cut a lot without asking for more. I understand you guys are gonna have to do what you have to do, and it's up to the people, but a new router would be a nice addition. That's all I have to say.
Just don't get it from Comcast. Sorry.
You didn't say that, did you?
Yes, I did.
There goes your new little doodad.
I'm worried.
I would like to make a comment on the figures of $63,800 and the $10,000. We got those figures about 6 years ago, so they're not current. We don't know what the current figures are, but I'm sure they're a lot more than 63, 8, and 10.
And even at what they were 6 years ago, I mean, that's a lot of money for what we gained from it, in my estimation.
So,
I did want to add, there's a group of us in the state of New Hampshire, there's about 40 libraries that are looking at possibly trying to see if we can do a joint purchase for a library system to see if we can save any money. We've just started that, and we're just actually exploring systems. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know if the system that the group actually finally chooses will be affordable or if it'll meet our needs, but it is something we're involved in to explore to see if that's a possibility, just to let you know.
Mm-hmm.
okay, so, if I may.
Yeah.
So Barbara, the intent of the overall intent of the resolution was to try to figure where are we going versus where we've been. So I listened to the school budget presentation and to where the school's going, and then I talked to the people at the school, and their basic philosophy is that about 3 to 5 years ago, they started putting together what's a 6-page vision of digital, saying, if we don't do something, our customers are changing faster than we can service them. So we have to change with our customers or we're going to become obsolete. So they had and we can probably share this with you, they had a 6-page vision document, a 30-some-odd page plan about where they're going. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, we're good for, the 40-plus crowd, right? The people who are, going into the library and everything else. But for that crowd that's coming up behind them, what's our vision and where are we going? And do we have a plan?
Well, what do you feel we're missing for I'd say for the 40 and under crowd?
I don't know, we ought to ask them. The library's
I'm
done
just
all...
saying, what you said you according to what you see, I mean, I'm just
Well,
wondering
what you've given me is, and I mean this very respectfully, what you've given me is you've given me a report of what's happened in the past. What I'm looking for is where you going? What's the future plan beyond today? I mean, this is good information, but where are we going? It's not my job to figure out where the 40 and under people are going. The school's already started that process, and if we don't want to have an obsolete library, where are you guys going? Because you're going to come next year and you're going to say, I want X number of dollars. And I'm going to ask you the same question. If you can tell me where you're going, then I can be a lot more supportive, knowing that we're going to be servicing the people who are going to continue to grow into the community, because the 40 and over crowd's dying off whether we like it or not. Do you understand what I'm saying?
If I may, John?
Yeah.
To compare a public library to a school library is very difficult because we're not in the dynamics of a curriculum and teaching. I did see the school's IT budget and their plans for K through 2 or 3 through 4, and it's very admirable, but it's a different dynamic than the public library.
We're going to disagree on whether, we're going to disagree on my question versus what your answer's going to be.
Well-
The way you're going right now.
Okay.
Because
The
I'm not talking
ebooks-
about the school library.
No,
I'm
but
talking about where you're going.
I'm just saying, the ebooks that we have, I think that we're going in the direction that most libraries are going as far as technology is at this time, if that makes any sense to you. There are always going to be paper books. yes, we'll increase our ET inventory as best we can, and then who knows what the future's going to bring. I mean, it would be nice to
Well,
probably,
that's why we need a plan, because we sort of know what's happening. I mean, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
that's true,
Over the last 10 years, behavior has changed dramatically.
that's true.
Just want to know where we're going.
But I guess I'd just like to say, if you look at what we do as a whole, part of the public library function is to offer a mix of traditional library service and technology. If you actually look, we track these statistics of what goes on in every one of our services we provide on a monthly basis, okay? We do that so we could look at trends. We do that for the New Hampshire State Library Report, which we're mandated to provide to the federal government annually. And if you look at all the statistics, that's what we're trying to tell you in terms of the trends right now. You're asking us to predict the trends.
Well, let me rephrase the question.
Okay, yes.
You're asking for $100,000 more. In order to get this councilor's support for $100,000 more, I want to know what the future plan is
I don't know
as the world goes digital.
What 100,000 are you what 100,000 are you talking about? It came out of the blue.
How much more are they asking for?
The budget we're asking for is.
The budget
the
submitted by-
budget increase we asked for, okay, included contractual agreements for the staff. Well, if you want to go into what we
Barbara, I'm not
asked
trying to have
for.
a debate with you. I'm trying to get a simple answer to a simple
All right,
question.
well, I'm going to answer it this way, okay? What Dave basically did, and I'm not picking on Dave, he's the town manager, and he did it to, he looked at the budget for everyone. When he cut our book material budget, people think there's only books in there. That pays for the downloadable audios. That pays for the databases. By cutting that line item, 30,000, he basically eliminated all our databases, so that's all our electronic offerings. He eliminated all our downloadable audio books. He eliminated all our magazines. That was with one, pen stroke. And so the point I'm saying is to go and try to say what the future is going to hold, I would, at this point in time, after the meeting the other night, okay, and the feedback I've received from the community, I would be happy if we could keep our existing hours.
Okay. You're still not answering my question, okay? I'm trying to be as absolutely respectful as possible. Here, look, please, let me please finish, okay? If you don't know the answer, fine, you don't know the answer. Then my question would be as if you say, you know what, I don't know the answer, we don't have a plan, okay? Then I would say, okay, when can we get one? How can we work together? Because you're gonna need, you've got $1.3 million-ish, and you're gonna want more going forward. I mean, how do we work together? How do we do that? How do we make the library more productive? How do we help you?
I think the library is very productive. I could go through all the statistics.
Barbara, stop defending, okay?
Excuse me. You're over
I'm
there
not
saying we're not productive. How do you make it more productive?
I said, how do you,
It isn't.
Barbara,
Time.
please listen, okay? Stop defending. The world is changing whether we like it or not, okay? All I'm saying to you is can we work together? Okay, can we help? Okay, how do we become more productive for those people who are graduating from college, who are 25 years younger than I am, who look at the world a different way so that they use the public library? Are you being defensive about something that I'm not being defensive about?
Mr.
I'm asking you, excuse me, I'm asking you a very simple question, and the answer can be, I don't know.
Go ahead, Tom.
Please proceed.
Let me ask it a different way. The town every year puts together a capital plan that looks to the future for several years, sometimes a decade in the future. And obviously, the further you look out, the foggier it is, and it becomes a lot of guesswork. But it's a plan that you can use and you can prioritize, and if things happen, things break, you can pull things into the closer to near term than they were originally. The budget is a one-year plan. It looks out 1 year. And I think what the the council's looking for is something like a capital plan that the overall town has, but it's focusing on technology, let's say a 5-year plan. An ILS system. Is a new ILS system somewhere in the 5 or 10-year window in the future? It's going to have to be replaced at some point in time. What would your prediction be would be the right time when the functionality of the existing system starts to dip to the point where maybe it makes sense to make that expenditure? Now, right now, you might find that we don't have the funding answers questions and the funding questions answered. So you might say, well, gee, we're having trouble getting our budget passed. What are you talking about all this other expensive stuff for? Well, those are questions that don't have to be answered in a 5-year plan. It can be something that maybe we have a workshop on and strategize it. In the early part of this discussion, I was digging around looking for sources of money on your behalf to see if we could get, we wouldn't stop there. We'll look, maybe there's warrant articles, maybe there's other funding sources, maybe there's grants, maybe there's co-ops or whatever. But the funding question, so I think you need to divorce the funding concern for a minute, just kind of put it in a box for a while and say, all right, what do we really need and what does the community need from a technology standpoint over the next few years? In the next 2 years, you probably already know. The next 5 years, you kind of think. Next 10 years, maybe it's a wild guess. But once you lay that out, then you say, okay, how are we going to pay for this? Different question. And it's not something you have to answer. It's something that you say, okay, community, well, this is what we think the technology plan ought to be. Now, together, we're going to have to figure out how or if we're going to fund this. And because the funding sources might be very different a few years out. The funding, the ability to fund, maybe the economic climate changes, and maybe you have a recently retired state rep that leaves all her money to the library, and you get a source of money. So we don't know. So I would I guess suggest not let the funding perils of the present and the recent past cramp your vision of technology for the future, because that's not your problem. The funding isn't your problem. It's our problem, and we're not ready to tackle that yet. Because you can't tackle the funding first and then get the funding, now what do we want to buy for that?
And I think that as chair of the trustees, that after hearing what you've said, and it makes perfect sense, that the trustees have probably been lax in going that direction as well. So give us some time to brainstorm. At this particular time, I have to say I honestly don't have an answer for you.
Right. You can think of it as a plan. You can think of it as a wish list.
Right.
But I think to put a business terminology on it, it's really a business plan. What's the business plan? The business technology plan. Right. Let's say for the next 5 years. And if you want to go up beyond that,
well, we've certainly looked into the the self-checkout. We've certainly looked into increasing our e-book, those kind of things.
I mean, in the very nearest term, it sounds like you need some new routers. I mean, that would be probably near 2 or something.
And that would help. And that would help in your problem when you have these spikes in services where people are coming and looking for internet. So
true. But as trustees, I think that. Well, I don't think I know. That's an area that we will.
So it would certainly
get into a little bit.
It would certainly be appropriate for the trustees to come to the council saying, listen, we got this technology plan, and it looks like in year 3, we're going to be looking for $75,000 for X, Y, and Z. Can you help us figure out how we're going to get that money, or where that might come from, or whether that's reasonable? And then we have the money discussion.
Great.
But we need you to help to advise us what the right technology is.
So, thank you for that. Advice.
Yeah, the thing that I've kind of noticed through the years is there always seems to be this turf thing, and that's fine, because respectfully, that's what the trustees are there for. But
well, you people as well. I mean, you're there to do the best you can for the town, and we're here to do the best we can for the library. But that doesn't mean there has to be at one another,
Right.
So, but.
I'm sorry, I have to take a work call. I apologize.
Oh, that's all right, John. That's no problem. So I will speak as chair of the trustees, and I'm certain that my fellow trustees will agree that we'll get together and focus more on that and try and get a plan together that's a little more concrete. I think at this particular time, and you guys know it better than we do, this budget thing has just been, you know, and with the first year of not having town meeting, you know, it's just a whole different genre right now.
It's
And
different, it's different, but people are afraid of nothing. The sky's not gonna fall.
No,
you
and it's
know?
not, Sean, and you're
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's not like Chicken Little running around
It really,
trying to find Henny Penny.
what it really comes down to is, the only change really is that the other meetings before the voting meeting.
Exactly.
And you'll have more people voting on your budget, and, you know, but you'll still have the same input at the town meeting, deliberative session, whatever you want to
We
call it.
understand that, but I think
Yeah.
the public maybe is a little confused by it all, but we'll get through it.
Takes some getting used to.
Nothing's gonna collapse.
Any other
Well,
questions?
I have nothing else to say, but
No?
I'm all set.
Joe? Okay.
thank you for your time.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Appreciate.
We appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Tom. Take care.
Thanks, you too.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question about the deliberative session?
Of course.
The procedures of the deliberative session going to be explained to the public? And are the rules of the moderator going to be made public before the session?
Good questions.
We can recommend the moderator do that, but ultimately it's the moderator's decision how she runs the meeting and what rules she's going to make and share.
Okay, but is it going to be like the school deliberative session was? Do you know?
I do not know.
Does LGC put out rules for deliberative sessions?
I suspect it'll be the same as a Saturday budgetary town meeting. The only difference is that the decisions will not be final. The decisions will go on the ballot for the meeting in March.
Well, the decision of the deliberative session will be what will be on the ballot for the voters to vote on, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
The microphone. Betsy, come on up.
Betsy, come on up.
They won't be able to hear you at home.
They don't have to, I'm scheduling. Since it's the budget season and you're working on the budget, I thought I'd give you a little heads up on the county budget. And,
Is it good or bad news?
It's usually bad.
I think it's gonna be bad this year. The county employees have had no wage increase, not COLAs, not STEP, or anything for 2 years. And the pot's boiling, and it's gonna explode this year. We had hoped that we'd get through and the recession would be better. And of course, Rockingham County, most of our citizens work in Massachusetts, so it's really bad. So I think the county budget is gonna go up. The other thing is, Medicaid's been cut back on the nursing home, both the state and the federal level. And that was always sort of a source of revenues for us. And it's not, it's now a sort of expenses. So while it wasn't a revenue area, it always ended up that way. So I think you're gonna see an increase in the county budget that might 5 or 10 cents. I just thought you ought to know when you're trying to hold things in.
See, and that's the tough thing going into the budget, you know, when everybody, when,
We find that out afterwards.
before Barb and it's discussed, well, I think what it comes down to is that we have much the same concerns sitting up here. You know, you have a certain segment of people and seniors. You know, I get lectured by my mother today. Who lives off Social Security. I mean, we have to sit there and look at the contractual obligations we have for our employees, for the services that we have, you know, and then you have the library, you have the cable, but at the same token, you have people saying, we don't want you to cut these services. It's a horrible juggling act, it really is. I mean, and nobody wants to see their part of the world reduced or changed, but they also don't want a tax increase, so it's like
Well, we all appreciated the tax bills this year. At least it didn't go sky high.
not as much as
But I
it could
just
have.
thought I'd give you a heads up.
Well, thank you, appreciate it,
There's no way what's gonna happen, but
but we appreciate you coming in, thank you.
So Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of our public meeting of 11/19 and 11/21/2011.
Got a motion?
Second.
second. Okay, I didn't see anything that needed to be changed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, 5-0. Motion passes. Let's see, liaison reports. We'll start on this side. Joe?
I do not have any. I have one coming up Wednesday, library, so I plan on attending that.
Alrighty. Mr. Frieda?
I don't have any planning board starts tomorrow night and the following week.
Lucky you. Council Dolan?
I had the International Exchange Commission met this evening, but I ducked out to try to make some of the meeting, but they had already finished, so I wasn't able to attend.
Council?
I had Airport Authority, and they did announce that the Southwest will be stopping their flights to Philadelphia, and they're not leaving the airport, they're only stopping their flights to Philadelphia in January, and Providence will be stopping theirs, and Boston will be stopping theirs in February, so the only provider from the market will be US Air. They did announce that they're going to have a new nonstop flight to Denver, and that they're going to take the Las Vegas flight and suspend that from January, February, March, and April, and substitute a Fort Lauderdale direct flight. So a number of changes at the airport. The airport will have the new screening technology, but it will be different than the screening technology that is used in Boston. It won't be the X-ray equipment. It will show more of a gingerbread man type of piece, and then show where the metal or something may be that they have to further investigate. Talked to Mark Brewer at length about Pettingill Road, and did I have anything else? I think that was it.
I guess I know I won't be flying out to go see my parents in Vegas.
Did I hear right? I think I read in the paper that the alternative, the US Air alternative, is about 800% more expensive to Philadelphia than US Air was.
What they said that they flew out to US Air in Phoenix. They met with US Air. They talked to them about a Phoenix nonstop. The US Air at that time said that they would.
I'm talking about the Philadelphia run.
They said at this time there wasn't going to be an increase. There may be one overtime. They weren't very specific about it.
I mean, it was like $45 versus $350, something like
that. Let me give you an example. I just booked a flight to Philadelphia today, and it was $244 round trip on US Air, and it was $385 on Southwest.
Oh, okay.
So go figure. I mean, it's a one-day trip in and out on a Monday. So I don't know the answer to your question. I think there will be an increase since they'll be the only one in the market, but I think that's the nature of that business.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question from what you see? So it seems like the continuing trend of the airport continually losing. Again, this doesn't strike me as being a pro-growth thing with Southwest.
Well, what they said was...
And they are the biggest carrier?
They're the biggest carrier. You can go on the website and you can see what carriers carry which customers. We'll do around 3.2 million customers this year, down from almost 6 million in 2006. We're tracking exactly the same as Providence, yet Logan has recaptured a number of those customers, with JetBlue being their largest carrier. Another thing they explained at the meeting, which was sort of interesting, is, and I've actually seen this in the business places, is the non-stops have cut back tremendously. And they've gone back to the concept of the 80s and 90s of a lot of spoke and hub. So they're trying to get everybody into the hubs and then get them out from there, because it's actually saving them fuel and in using different types of aircrafts to get you in and out. So the industry itself appears from what they said, and I'm only repeating what was said at the meeting, is that the industry is also going through a change. And we're down from 80 some odd flights to 60 flights a day. But, Mark was very clear about the fact that he is out and on the road constantly talking to the airlines and trying to recruit other airlines into Manchester. So he's not stagnant in his approach at this point. There was a lot of talk about Pettingill Road, but they said that, not Pettingill Road, there was talk about Pettingill Road, there was talk about the Ray Resort Drive Access Road, and how that grows our market and our radius from 5 to 10 miles, yet they're not really sure how to reach that 5 to 10 mile radius. And we actually had a whole conversation after the meeting about Facebook might be the best way to go about doing it, and just a bunch of us standing around brainstorming. But the airport appears to be very proactive in trying to get more people to come. It's just harder.
Nobody's getting money.
So that's, pretty much at the airport. Now, I don't believe I had anything else. Oh, I had dispatch committee. We visited the Derry dispatch.
Mhm.
And the committee went there, and the next meeting is, I think we're tentatively December 20th, which we should be, we visited everywhere, and it's time for everybody to say, okay, where do you want to go, and how are we going to get there? And there's been a number of discussions about, what they want to do versus, but there's been no final discussion on what the committee has decided to do.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Thanks, John. Dave?
Nothing additional this time.
I didn't have anything either.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint, reappoint, or accept resignation of the following folks on our boards and committees. Resignation of Mike Gallagher from an alternate position on the ZBA. Resignation of Vicki Keenan from a full position on the ZBA. Resignation of Rosemary Dan from the International Exchange Committee. Appointment of Neil Jackson Smith as an alternate member of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, term expiration 12/31/12. Appointment of Martin Shrugas as an alternate to the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, term to expire 12/31/12. A reappointment of Gail Moretti as a full member on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, term expiration 12/31/12. And a reappointment of Deb Nowicki to the Londonderry International Exchange Committee, term expiration 12/31/14.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any comments by the council?
No.
Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of Tom's motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, 5-0, motion passes.
Dave has
Before we do an adjournment, I also want to talk to.
Just zoning board.
Yep.
I think we're getting pretty thin, Margot, on numbers of zoning boards, so please, any volunteers interested, let Margot know.
Okay.
That's a critical board, and, they do have quasi-judicial powers, so we'd like to be at full staffing.
How many people do you need
Margot?
right now? 3 people right now? Yikes. When did that happen?
Well, that's a combination of
Some of them just tonight.
both permanent members and alternates, but
There was one position that was open for a couple of months, and then we've got 2 people who just resigned off of it.
Wow.
Vicky and
Wow.
Vicky's been on for a long time. I served with her, and Mike was a newbie, but, I don't know.
Okay, well, that's something we need to look at. So do we want to put out some ads?
Well, I did have she just left. The Londonderry Times has that news section in the back end, which is great.
Mhm.
I did put an ad in there, but I did ask Kathy Bailey to do like a big article.
Okay.
I'll get on and do that.
All right. Is that something also we post on the town website?
we do.
Okay. All right. The only other thing I wanted to bring up before we get the adjournment, because I knew that would come quickly. The town council budget public hearing, the next meeting we have is going to be December 19th?
That's correct.
Okay. So that's a public hearing, and we, ask that you please come down and tell us what you're thinking, and we'll get back into the budget discussion. And then after that, we'll have another meeting on December 28th, which will be close to the end of the year, which is unbelievable. So that's all I wanted to say.
Dave, I think you need to change the deliberative session notice. I don't think it's being held at the...
Sean caught me earlier, right?
Yeah.
Should say cafeteria. We'll get that
Yeah.
corrected.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative. We are now adjourned.